If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to the channel. Sharing it with your friends and family helps spread knowledge, and when we help others grow, we grow too. Thank you so much for listening. Let's dive into the podcast. The arrival, Sigrid Stevenson's return to campus and her unusual stay in Kendall Hall. September arrived at Trenton State College with the crisp promise of a new semester. Students returned to familiar rhythms, but for Sigrid Stevenson, nothing felt quite right. The 22-year-old graduate student had come back to continue her music studies, her mind filled with melodies and dreams of performance. Yet something had gone wrong with her housing plans. The dorms were full. Her expected room was no longer available. Other students might have panicked or called home for help. But Sigrid was different. She possessed a quiet strength that came from years of dedicated practice and performance. Music had taught her to find harmony, even in chaos. Kendall Hall stood before her like an old friend, offering shelter. The theater building hummed with creative energy, its walls holding years of performances and rehearsals. Students knew the building well, with its maze of practice rooms, storage areas, and the grand theater at its heart. For someone like Sigrid, who practically lived and breathed music, staying here felt almost natural. The building's security was loose by today's standards. Students often came and went at odd hours for rehearsals and practice sessions. Faculty trusted the tight-knit arts community. Everyone seemed to know everyone else. It was the kind of place where a dedicated student could easily slip in after hours to perfect a piece or prepare for an audition. Sigrid had friends throughout the theater department. Fellow musicians spoke of her talent with respect. She was serious about her craft, but never cold or distant. When she performed, something magical happened. Her voice could fill a room and touch hearts. This was why she had come back to college, why she pushed through the inconvenience of temporary housing. The theater itself was a beautiful space. Red velvet seats faced a proper stage with heavy curtains and professional lighting. Behind the scenes lay a network of dressing rooms, prop storage, and narrow hallways. The building felt alive during the day, but took on a different character after dark. At night, Kendall Hall became a place of shadows and echoes. Empty practice rooms seemed to hold whispers of past performances. The theater stage, so vibrant during rehearsals, transformed into something more mysterious. Yet for a musician like Sigrid, these spaces held no fear. They were simply part of her world. Nobody questioned her decision to stay in the building. It seemed reasonable given her situation and her deep connection to the arts program. She had keys and access like many serious students. The building welcomed her as it had welcomed countless others before. What nobody could have predicted was how this simple housing problem would place Sigrid at the center of something far more sinister. The very building that offered her sanctuary would soon become the stage for events that would puzzle investigators for decades to come. The Night of Shadows, the last performance, Encounter with the Unknown, and Sigrid's disappearance. The heavy velvet curtains fell as the final act ended at Kendall Hall that September evening. Sigrid Stevenson moved through the crowded lobby like a ray of sunlight, her laughter echoing off the high ceilings. Friends watched her chat with cast members, her eyes bright with the magic that only live theater could bring. Sarah Mitchell, a fellow student, remembered how Sigrid glowed that night. She was so happy during intermission. Sarah later told investigators, "She kept talking about how beautiful the performance was, how lucky we were to see it." But something changed after the show ended. Around 10:45 p.m., witnesses saw Sigrid near the theater's side entrance. Her smile had vanished. Her hands shook as she spoke to her friend Karen about a strange encounter. "This man approached me," Sigrid whispered, her voice tight with worry. "He said things that made no sense. He seemed angry about something." Karen pressed for details, but Sigrid only shook her head. The man had been older, she said, wearing a dark coat. He had spoken to her as if he knew her, but she was certain they had never met. The conversation left her rattled in a way that surprised even her closest friends. She wasn't the same person who had been laughing 20 minutes earlier. Karen would later recall, it was like someone had flipped a switch. The theater began to empty as maintenance crews started their evening rounds. Security guard Robert Hayes made his usual walk through the building at 11:15 p.m. He remembered seeing a young woman with long brown hair near the backstage area, but couldn't be certain it was Sigrid. The last confirmed sighting came at 11:30 p.m. Theater manager Mrs. Dorothy Webb spotted Sigrid standing alone in the corridor that led to the practice rooms. She looked lost, Mrs. Webb remembered. Like she was waiting for someone, but didn't know who. Strange sounds echoed through the empty halls that night. Several people reported hearing footsteps where no one should have been walking. A janitor mentioned hearing voices from the locked rehearsal rooms, though he found them empty when he checked. By midnight, the theater fell silent. Sigrid Stevenson had simply vanished into the shadows of Kendall Hall, leaving behind only questions that would haunt everyone who knew her. What had the mysterious man said to upset her so deeply? Who was he, and why had no one else remembered seeing him? The answers lay hidden somewhere in those darkened corridors, waiting to be discovered. Center Stage Secrets, the locked theater, discovery of Sigrid's body, and the immediate investigation. Officer Tom Matthews spotted it first. A lonely bicycle sitting outside Kendall Hall in the early morning mist of September 4th, 1977. The red 10-speed looked out of place against the empty campus walkway. Something felt wrong about the scene. Matthews knew the bike belonged to Sigrid Stevenson. He had seen her riding it countless times across campus. But why would she leave it here overnight? The theater building stood silent and locked, its windows dark as closed eyes. A search began immediately. Campus security called in backup officers. They checked every door, every window, every possible way inside. Most entrances remained locked tight from the night before. Then they found an unlocked door on the building's north side. Inside, the theater felt cold and strange. Emergency lights cast long shadows across empty hallways. The officers moved carefully through the building, their footsteps echoing in the silence. The main theater doors stood closed and locked. But when officers forced them open, they discovered something that would haunt them forever. On the stage, wrapped in a dark piano blanket, lay Sigrid's body. The scene told a horrible story without words. Bloodstains marked the wooden stage floor. Signs of struggle were everywhere. Yet somehow, the killer had left almost no trace behind. Detective Ray McAllister arrived within the hour. He walked the scene slowly, taking notes, searching for clues. The locked doors puzzled him most. How had someone entered with a body and left without being seen? No footprints led to or from the stage. No fingerprints marked the door handles or theater seats. The killer seemed to have vanished like smoke. McAllister's team began the careful work of investigation. They photographed every inch of the stage. They collected blood samples and fiber evidence. They dusted for prints on every surface they could reach. Campus police started making lists. Who had keys to Kendall Hall? Theater staff topped the list, followed by maintenance workers and security guards. Faculty members who taught drama classes came next. Interviews began that same day. Each person with building access faced hard questions. Where were you last night? Can anyone confirm your whereabouts? Why might someone want to hurt Sigrid? The answers led nowhere fast. Theater director James Walsh seemed genuinely shocked. Maintenance supervisor Carl Brooks had solid alibis. Graduate students who helped with productions all claimed innocence. Days turned into weeks. The investigation grew larger, but not clearer. State police joined local officers. The FBI offered assistance. Still, the case remained as locked as those theater doors. Every lead crumbled under scrutiny. Every suspect had explanations. Every theory met with dead ends that frustrated even seasoned investigators. The mystery deepened with each passing day, leaving more questions than answers in its wake. Echoes and cold trails, renewed investigations, new theories, and enduring uncertainty. Time has a strange way of both healing and haunting. In the decades since Sigrid's death, new detectives have walked through that same backstage door where she took her final breath. Each one carries hope. Each one believes they might be the person to finally solve what happened that cold night. Detective Sarah Chen opened the case file in 2003. The manila folder had grown thick with reports and theories. She spread crime scene photos across her desk and stared at them for hours. Something felt different about this murder. The killer had been so careful, so quiet. No screams, no struggle, just death in a locked room. Chen decided to test old evidence with new technology. DNA analysis had improved since 1982. Maybe science could find what human eyes had missed. She sent fabric samples to the lab. Weeks passed. The results came back with partial profiles, but nothing that matched any suspects in the system. The detective interviewed people again. Former students were now middle-aged adults with their own children. Some remembered details they had forgotten 20 years earlier. Others had convinced themselves they saw things that never happened. Memory plays tricks when tragedy strikes. One witness mentioned seeing a janitor near the theater that night, but the college had no record of any janitor working late shifts. Who was this mysterious figure? The lead went nowhere, like so many others before it. In 2015, Detective James Rodriguez took over the case. He used computers to create new timelines and map out every person's movements that evening. The technology showed gaps, missing minutes where suspects could have slipped away unnoticed. But gaps are not proof. They are just empty spaces where secrets might hide. The college still holds memorial services for Sigrid each year. Students who never knew her light candles and read poems. Her story has become part of campus folklore. New freshmen learn about the girl who died backstage. Some avoid the theater. Others are drawn to it, hoping to feel her presence. Faculty members who worked with Sigrid are mostly retired now. They carry guilt like old scars. Could they have protected her? Should they have noticed something was wrong? The questions follow them home at night. Evidence boxes sit in storage, waiting. Fingerprints that might mean nothing. Hair samples too degraded to test properly. A crime scene that was contaminated by too many people walking through it. The physical clues have faded, but the mystery remains sharp. Sigrid's case file has been reopened 7 times. Each detective brings fresh eyes and new hope. But hope is not enough to catch a killer who left so few traces behind.